What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Infusion Breakdown Show. As always, it's your boy Joshua Freeman. I'm here with Brian Carey and also Mr. Desmond Tillman. How's you guys' week been? A little over a week, actually.
Rough.
For real?
Yeah,
Why?
just
Work-wise?
work. Yeah, work related.
Uh,
But outside of work, everything's fine.
okay. What about you, Des?
Weekend was cool. Went down to North Carolina and spent Mother's Day with my mom. So happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Absolutely. So today we're going to be talking about health versus wealth. The question, why is wealth valued more than health in society? What do you guys think? Comment below. So, do we have the
We
spinner?
do. Yes, sir.
I hate that it does this.
Of course. So for this question, I don't want to make any assumptions. So let's not assume that we automatically value wealth more than health. Because the word value, it means that we actually have some kind of action behind it. And so when it comes down to what we actually value, wealth itself is described as an excess of having resources or monetary gain or something like that. And then health is defined as the absence of illness. But how many of us actually have those, or how many of us actually behave as if we do value those things? So like everyone's really fascinated with the idea of being rich, with being wealthy, but the people who actually reflect it in their actions are in the minority of that group. And the same thing could be said for health either. So I don't really think that people value health or wealth as much as we say that we do.
You want to jump in, Des? Or you?
Um, that's not you abstaining from the actual. What's your opinion of it? Is it? Is it?
That is my opinion. I don't think that we value health as much as we think that we do, and I don't think we value money as much as we think we do. Like
Oh,
you actually
okay.
have to really analyze that
Who's we? Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say because
as people, like everyone. This is a societal question,
I
right?
don't know, man.
That's how you posed it.
I can't necessarily agree with that because I think
Yeah.
the greatest example of it present day is how we're responding to coronavirus. Like the easiest way I can look at it and say numbers are going up every day, but businesses are still the government is still making initiative to open up businesses so there can be a generation of some cash flow. It might be minor, but they're still opening it up for a influx of business. Is it beneficial? Probably not, because the society we live in, it's kind of we live in, I personally think we live in a fear-based society. So with numbers going up, even with you opening businesses, that's not going to um, impose people to go back out and go back to their normal way of living. I think it's actually going to do the opposite, because I think as we get that first wave of people that go back out, and then you see an even higher spike in numbers than what it was before, you're going to see more mandatory stay-at-home orders. You're going to see businesses close again based off of government order, and then we're going to go right back to where we were at. So I think we do value money a lot more than health present day, because we're making decisions based off of money, not based off of the health and benefit of society. And my own personal opinion of it is, I think health is so much more complex to understand than the wealth aspect, even though wealth is it has its own complexity to itself. I think people people will look at health and say, I'm gonna die regardless of anything. I'm gonna die one day regardless of what I do. Whereas if I can get as much money as I can live to my maximum amount of joy doing things that I could not do if maybe I was focused more on health, or if I was just coasting by in life. So I think some people might put a little bit more emphasis on wanting to get money because, yeah, we're all going to die. Yeah, I can get, these diseases that I get later into my 60s, 70s and die off from it. But if I can obtain the maximum amount of wealth I can from 25 and up until then that's going to be better than, the 5 or 10 years that I'm suffering from some godly disease, or from some ill-strucken disease. I think personally we do value wealth more, because nobody wants to struggle. Like, you can be healthy and broke, but I think if you give somebody the option to be ill and wealthy, or choose the option to be ill and wealthy, because then their mindset is going to be, okay, well, I can now afford to maybe get some sort of treatment, or I can afford to you know, live out my last days for my maximum benefit. Whereas if you're broke but healthy, then what benefit are you to anyone other than yourself?
Is it
And
is that the way you think? So if the two opposites of the spectrum, so you being, let's make this absolute worst you can. So terminally ill and wealthy, or perfectly healthy and broke, you would choose?
he's not
No,
going off
no,
of him. No, he's not going off of
No,
yeah,
him.
it's
no,
not, it's not going on me.
I'm asking based off of you.
No, I mean, I'm gonna.
He's going to probably.
I mean, if you ask me, I'm gonna go healthy
Exactly.
and broke, because my mindset, I have the ability to make a better, you know, situation based off of what I know. Like for me personally, I am healthy and broke. And I realize as I focus more on health instead of the wealth aspect, like I begin to make more articulate. My speech pattern itself, it's decreased, you know, because niggas smoked a lot of weed when I was younger before I should have. So I realized, like, as I do smoke, if smoking doesn't do anything, it definitely can fuck up your ability to articulate your thoughts into speech, perfect speech per se. So I will say that as I focus more on health, like I've had a lot more healthier thoughts. I have a desire to want to learn more than what I did before. And then I have a desire to apply what I'm learning to do better. Whereas when I was just money based, when I was like 17, 18, 19, like I was just going out making money and then being tired as hell at 8 o'clock, coming home, going to sleep, or going out and smoking and drinking. Like you live a completely different lifestyle based off the mindset you have on both ends of the spectrum. And we always live off the mind frame. You don't know, you only know what you don't know, or you know what you don't know, whatever, however they intertwine. But when you live a healthy mind, or you live a healthy lifestyle, your ability to obtain and apply what you obtain into practice increases tremendously, rather than you focus on being, you know, wealthy, and in that example would be terminally ill and wealthy.
But I asked you who is we exactly, because you might be thinking about people as far as society, but I was thinking more about the people that are in charge. That even the people who are in charge, they don't think about the people's wealth. I mean, people's health more than their wealth. If you really think about it, and plus, even if you look at it, I know Desmond kind of went to it on a micro level, but if you even look at it more on a micro level, people every day, like he said, how you went out just get smoking and drinking and all of that, but people don't watch what they eat half of the time. They might go to the gym, but that's only what half the battle, if that. You got to know what you eat, all of that, because I mean, but at the same time they focus on getting that money because they feel
Getting what money?
money.
No, no, the question was posed as wealth. So wealth isn't just having like a nice job. This is doing more than well, having overabundance. And so you're making very valid points. I agree with just about everything that you guys have said about people sacrificing their bodies for the sake of going to work and things like that, and then not taking care of themselves when it comes to eating, smoking, drinking, and stuff like that, staying up all night. I get that. That's I'm not disputing that whatsoever. But I don't think that we value either of them to the degree that we think we do. Because if you do, then your actions, like I said, will reflect it. So if you were valuing money that much, then you would see how many people in light of this current pandemic that we're experiencing, how many people have adopted side hustles and ways to get money while they're confined indoors, as opposed to ones who haven't. And then you think about the same people who have adopted practice of ways to then better their physical condition now, as opposed to that were doing it before. And so what I'm seeing, as far as I can tell, is that people who were being healthy before are still finding ways to be healthy, and the people who are still finding ways to get money are the ones who were still getting money before. But so you said that you value, so I'm assuming that we all are on the same page, that we value health more than wealth. So Desmond, you brought up the current situation, the pandemic that we're experiencing right now. So what policies would you have handled differently? Would you have liked to see handled differently if we were to behave as if we valued our health more? Aside from the closings, because for example, I mean, this probably was done a little bit too late, and that's we could talk about that as well. But as of April 20th, all but 5 states had issued closures to some capacity.
You know, I don't have any qualms with how the initial response was as far as closing things down. I think, you know, a couple of your like your rural jobs, I think that they potentially could have handled it better. Like if you know anybody that works like a shipyard, or even if you watch the news, you kind of see cases of you know, I mean, that's your essential workforce at the end of the day. So they're still going in and doing their job to the best of their ability, but they don't have those protections in place per se. Because if you ever been on like a Navy destroyer or a ship in general, it's very close quarters. It's not much space. So, you know, everything that has come into play as far as social distancing can't be applied to their specific field itself. Whereas if you work in an office job and, you know, not everybody comes to work, you can then, you know, you can move a couple seats down or whatever. You can make do with what you got. But, you know, when you're a welder or engineer of some sort, you go in on that ship, you know, you're in there with X amount of people all still confined into one small little space. So I think that was my only issue with how we handled it. I think my only other qualm is, I guess, how our government handled it, because we kind of see like astronomically high unemployment rates, and then of course, you know, the pushes for, you know, more stimulus. I think that, like how we brought up earlier, as far as like being a capitalist society, I think we always get a glimpse of how our society is always going to favor the business over the actual workforce that leads the business. Because at the end of the day, you know, the workforce will always be replaceable, whereas the business itself might not be. Like there's no guarantee that you're going to have a business come in and follow the same exact model and it flourishes as one that was previously existing. And then typically those businesses, they have connections with banks and things of that nature, to where, you know, they're getting some of these loans faster than some of the actual smaller businesses that really do need the loans. So we kind of see in that aspect, you know, the health versus wealth arguments, where our economic structure is always going to favor the big fish over the smaller businesses that's been, you know, striving for 50 or so years based off of being family operated, but they can't get that money because they're not like a high grossing business or entity in itself. So when it comes to the health aspect, I think we kind of see things on I'm not going to say on like a political line, to where, you know, your Republican states, they're open up sooner than your Democratic states or whatever, because that's not the case. Because we can see in California per se, which is a predominantly Democratic state, people still going to the beaches and doing their things. But then you look at Florida and they're doing the same thing. So those are two states on the opposite end of the spectrum that are similar behaviors. I think that there would have only been so much that we could have done in the sense of by force, because it violates the Constitution. Like you can put in an order, but you can't force people to stay inside. So I think we did as much as we can without setting a negative precedent as far as excessive force, in the sense of confining people to certain spaces. Like, yeah, you know, those people that can work at home, they've been doing it for months now, might be hanging in there by a thread, but they're still doing it. You got your check right there. But the actual people that, you know, may not be in a situations where they can work from home, I mean, they're not going to sit in the house all day. Nobody wants to sit in the house all day. So you're more likely to have part of the, you know, the population, like how it is now, go out and kind of ignore those orders because nobody's going to stay at home. So in conclusion, wrapping it all up, I think we're doing the best that we can. You can't control what people think or what they practice at the end of the day. Like the likelihood of, you know, you can impose fines, do things of that nature for people that don't follow it. But if they never get sick, then that's going to be their defense. Like, oh, you know, I have this $500 or so fine during a pandemic where I don't have a job, and now they're expecting me to pay that, but I'm not going to get sick, or I haven't gotten sick anyway. So you run into that issue.
I would argue that this could have been handled better, because we had known about the virus as early as late last fall. And so the way that this was handled by the World Health Organization, for example, it wasn't classified as a pandemic until later on. And then when it was posited the idea to close China's borders so they weren't traveling outward, it was decided against doing that for the sake of being discriminatory towards China. So that's something that could have been done sooner. And then I don't know exactly what we did as United States with regard to international travel, but that would have been something that I would have liked to have seen regulated a little quicker. Because I don't think we ever officially closed down flights out of the country, did we?
No, because that's what I was saying. Like it goes into your free liberties. Like people, you can do those type of things, but people are always going to question, the legitimacy of it via the Constitution. Like, can the government shut
Right.
these privately owned businesses down? That's what I'm getting at. Like, I wasn't thinking about the World Health Organization. I was thinking that based off of your constitutional barriers, I think we did the best that we could, because even with what we did, people still question the legality of it. Like, you still have churches suing the government to try and reopen and have Sunday service and things like that. Like, I think we did as much as we can, because in America, you're not going to be able to make everybody happy. You can make a large majority happy, but you're still going to piss off also a large portion of the populace itself. So that's what I like. As the United States, I think we did the best that we could based off of the type of people that we have. Because I honestly think that if you confine people to just their homes, there's going to be a small portion of the population, your radicalized portion, that's going to come out and they're going to have riots. Like, you can't, there's going to be certain things you cannot do based off of knowing what you're dealing with. Like, we're willing to, white people and black people, like, we're willing to riot over a cause, and what we view as an unworthy cause to us might be a very worthy cause to somebody else, and somebody that takes that worthy cause, or how they view it as a worthy cause, might can go up and tear some shit up. Instead of you having your small peaceful protests, you're going to have people rioting against the legalities of you mandating a stay-at-home order. And if you come outside, you can face either jail fine, or face fines or jail time or whatever. So I think that's why I say I think we did the best we can based off of, one, what the Constitution allows, and then two, what our population is made of as far as ideologies.
You'd think it was right to ban everybody coming in from China? You think that was the right thing to do? Or
If that's what originated, yeah. I mean, I feel like I understand, like, there's a serious precedent. You need to be really careful when you think about doing things like that. But if it came down to avoiding this entire pandemic and just closing all flights going there for 2 weeks, or until it was properly handled, I think that would have been a much more desirable outcome, as opposed to what we're currently experiencing now. Like, once the virus is already here. Would you have liked to seen anything differently, Josh, when it comes to the reopening and acclimation of our economy, like people going out and sort of open their jobs up again, like being the fact that there is a balance? Because if you shut down the economy for too long, then ultimately, like, it's an argument that could be posed that the people who would lose their lives as a result of that, like, if you want to go worst case scenario, they would lose their lives due to that, would outweigh the people who are losing it because of the actual virus itself. And so I think that that's something that they do look at, but it's so far from what we're currently experiencing now. So, like, back to my original question, like, what would you, if anything, would you change about the way that we're reopening things? Like, because to a degree, there is a necessity to have some things open.
To a degree, I mean, I'm glad I'm not in charge of that, because to be honest with you, I don't know. To be honest with you, I can't really say what should be open, what shouldn't be open, because I mean, I don't know how this thing is. You know what I mean? Say you can stay on your shoe for a certain amount of days. So I mean, I don't know. So I don't know. So
If we could have done anything different, I think it would have been like having uniform information, because there's been reports that have came out as far as like the 6 feet for social distancing really only applies to those that are wearing like a mask. And if you don't have a mask on, then that distance between the next person should be tripled by like 3%. And I feel like we're just constantly hearing, like, 6 feet or more. They preach it at Target, Walmart, Whole Foods, or whatever, like the 6 feet or more, behind the person in front of you per se. But there's never like a truly sound understanding of why we need the 6 feet, and then who the 6 feet applies to and who it doesn't apply to. Because I didn't know until a couple weeks, or probably about a week and a half ago. You know, that's something my dad mentioned. He was like, you know, it's a lot of people. CNN had someone had a I don't know what you call them, but like people that are like expertise in like pandemics and stuff like that. He came on and he broke down the 6 feet distance rule, and that it's really inadequate because you kind of see a very high shortage on masks. So not everybody has the means to get a mask. So for us to consistently preach the 6 feet and not explain all the components that need to be a part of, you know, the 6 feet rule, I think it's counterintuitive, because you could have people saying like, oh man, I made sure I kept my distance from people and I still got it. And I feel like everybody understands, you know, even like the sneezing aspect of, you know, if somebody that has it sneezes in an area, that area can be contaminated for up to 20 minutes and things of that nature. Like, these are all things that I've had to like hear from my friends who have actually read and, you know, got the information for themselves, rather than like something I've seen on, you know, CNN a few times I watch it. Because I feel like every time I've seen CNN, it's always about Trump, or it's about money, and as far as like how they're either doing terrible or how everybody cares about the Dow.
Yeah, there's been a lot of inconsistency as far as like even the professionals, where like going once again back to the World Health Organization, how they changed their stance on transmission methods. So at first it wasn't airborne, and then it is, and just like the official information. So that is a good point, having something uniform that we can rely on. But that was an uphill battle, because it was something that we had really, like, we've never experienced this before. How do you really test this? Do you get a sick person and put them in a room and just get some volunteers that are healthy to come in? And so it's a very difficult thing to handle. And like, I would not be a volunteer for that experiment. But yeah, that's a good point.
I was gonna say, my mom, she's a RN, and she ran the OBGYN, or she runs the OBGYN clinic at the hospital she's at. And I think she had got a report that said that they're now exploring the possibility of corona being transmitted sexually, which would lead to the theory that could be the reason why because she said that there's been a lot of miscarriages around the 9-week mark, and that could be playing a key factor into, you know, women's health as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because she got her master's from Dartmouth, so she still gets like they have their forums, and anytime, you know, breaking details or breaking theories come out, she gets all that stuff to her phone. So it's one of those theories that are currently present now, and I mean, it has a solid basis behind it. I was saying, what's your interpretation of health versus wealth? Because I know you kind of agreed with what I said, but, you know, what's
My interpretation of it?
your interpretation of it?
I mean, I do feel people do value that. I mean, I'm the type, I try to value my health more than wealth. I mean, I feel like I don't like when people say they chase money, because you really should never be chasing money. You should really be chasing something that makes you happy, or really not necessarily chasing, but going after what really makes you happy. So, and whether that is like exercising or focusing on your health or whatever that is, that's fine. But I mean, I try to focus on my health more than like me trying to get money per se, because I mean, I realized that as I grow older, I can accumulate even more money because of my age. Like, I can be rich by the time I'm 35, but I could double that if I can live to 65. You know what I mean? So it just, I try to. So
Actually, I agree with that sentiment as well, because one of the I consider him my Forex mentor. As you both know, I'm not the most religious or spiritual guy in the world, and he is the exact opposite. And I've seen firsthand how someone who is emotionally balanced, spiritually balanced, and then physically and healthy balance, how they handle money. They handle money so much more different than somebody that is money hungry. The reason why I say that is because unlike in the Forex community, you have people who are like an IML group, to where, you know, they're trying to get their max amount of gain off of every trade. And then you have your people that have mastered the skill themselves, by either self-teaching themselves or they've had a mentor and they pass down the knowledge to them. And it's amazing how, like, people that I went to school with or I work with, how they view Forex and how it's always about the dollar figure. And then with him, you'll see him pray. You'll see him give his thanks to his God more than you will see him post a successful trade. And just talking with him, anytime we do a weekly meeting, anytime we talk, we probably talk about money 5 minutes out of our hour-long conversation, because we're always talking about emotional balancing and what you could do to be emotionally balanced, what you can do to be spiritually balanced. Because when you have all those in order, you're able to make sound decisions. And when you make a sound decision, you're making that decision with confidence. And if it doesn't go your way, then you also have that ability to be confident and go back and reassess where you messed up, to where if you're kind of anxious or angry or whatever, if you mess something up, then it's almost like a fuck it attitude, and you just brush it to the side and you try and go up to the new thing instead of, polishing your tools and going back and doing something different. So I've seen firsthand, like, how people who take their health, they view money as like just it's this thing to get them where they want to go, but they don't have to necessarily have it, per se. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see, because he's 3 years, either 3 or 2 years younger than me. And he's making 6 figures a year, and you wouldn't even think that based off because he's just your normal 22, 23-year-old. He's, with the times, into the same stuff that we're into, but how he handles money and how he communicates with money is just, it's a night and day difference. Like, these guys have a car rental businesses with, your BMW i8s, your Mercedes G-Wagons, your Rubicon, your Jeep Rubicons with, with the top tier packages, but you'll never see them flossing all that stuff on social media. Like, if you ever see it on social media, it's because they're getting maintenance done for the next person to come rent it out, or they're washing it or something like that. But they're never like us, where, if we're in our car, you got to get the emblem, included on your video for Snap or for Instagram, so people can see what you're driving. Like, it's cool to see all that stuff, man.
Yeah, that I think that's because he found happiness. That's why I was like, you should look for what makes you happy, really.
Yeah.
That's the difference, really. And then
Yeah.
you won't worry about money. And some people who are confused, they think like, getting money makes me happy, but all right, what are you getting money for? Is you trying to live a lifestyle for the clout? Like, what exactly are you doing it for? Are you really doing it for yourself? So that's what's so I was like, be happy and find out what you are. And when you realize that money is like just something, like you said, to get you by, then you're in the best place, I feel. And you look at other people different. You're like, wait, why are you doing that for money? Like, really? Is it really that serious? Like, I understand you need that, but come on now. Like, really? But yeah, it's wild.
If you really take time to observe the way people behave, the way they talk about things, what they talk about, and like I said, like their actual actions, it becomes fairly evident what their life center is. So those people, like you said, they need the clout, they need to floss, they need to have everything, and there is no ultimate goal for them. It's like it's a never-ending path, and they'll never be satisfied. As opposed to if you center yourself on building yourself into something that's meaningful, then there's always something to accrue, and it's not like you're going towards a certain destination. You're going in a direction, but you're not going to say, hey, why aren't I there yet? Because you're actually taking time to go through that, and you're satisfied with what you have, and as you whatever rate you're accruing, that you see that as part of the experience. Josh, one of the things I believe you wanted to talk about was the balance between the two. So you said, could society ever value health and wealth equally? Do you think that's possible yourself?
No, not at all. Because of the society we were in, because we're in a capitalistic society, if that's even a word. But if we're gonna do that, we'll have to do something closer to socialism, which is something a lot of people really, really hate. Like, Bernie Sanders is the nominee, so yeah, we're not gonna be able to have that balance, because we're always gonna think that wealth is more important than the other thing. Well, when I say we, not me, I mean like the government. That's what I'm thinking. Because I don't know if you notice. I can't prove this. It's something I can't prove. But the government doesn't want you alive by 62. They don't want you dead by 62. So they won't collect those. So you won't collect those Social Security. It's not even 62 anymore. It's probably ages up more. But just something like that. Like yeah. So I don't think they can ever have two, and not this society, maybe more socialism, but it'll be a very long time before we even go to that, if that is even possible, to be honest with you.
So you think that we would thrive under socialism?
I didn't say that. I said
No,
would.
no, no, no. I'm asking you. I know you didn't say that.
Oh,
I'm not putting words in your mouth.
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you because I would have to. It's about experiment. I'm about experiments. I mean, I could have an educated guess, be like, people will care for each other more as far as thriving. I can't tell you because we have so many businesses now where it won't be the same. I mean, yeah, I mean, you could probably have Walmart cut taxes and give it to this like small business, but I mean, a lot of people are going to be angry because of that, because we're already in that mind frame of I made mine myself. I don't want to give it to you. Like we have that mind frame as Americans, as I earned mine. I'm not going to just give it to you. You know what I mean? So that's how I feel.
I feel like we can.
I wouldn't even go that far to say. What?
Okay.
I couldn't tell whether you're frozen or.
Oh no.
Go ahead.
What I was
Please
going to
share.
say was I wouldn't even go as far as to say that socialism is needed, because you gave the example of Walmart cutting taxes. They know the tax game better than we do. So, say for example, Brian, you make $100,000 a year. You make $100,000 in salary. I make $100,000 a year, and I make $100,000 from investing money. My tax rate is going to be 15% flat, whereas your tax rate is going to be something probably around high 27, maybe 30. I have the advantage already to where you're paying more to Uncle Sam than I am, to where I could sit there and turn around and reinvest what difference there is in tax based on me and you, and then make more money the following year. So what a lot of corporations do, and you see what a lot of, like Disney, for example, they buy their stocks back. They're consistently reinvesting their money into their company. So when it's time to pay taxes at the end of the year, for one, they're going to be paying at what we would describe as a 15% rate. I'm not sure what the rate is for corporations, but they're going to automatically be paying, a smaller tax percentage rather than somebody who is making Disney money in the form of like a salary per se. Like if you're paying me $100,000 and I'm investing and you're making $100,000, you're always at the end of the day going to tax the person that's making it through the actual salary itself, rather than the person that's actually investing it and getting that money from their investments. So that's why I said there would need to be a change in the tax system, because somebody like Walmart, you would be expecting them to pay, X amount of money in taxes, but you have your write-offs, you have your investments, and then of course you have your, think about how many of these businesses invest into the community and things of that nature. Those are all write-offs as well. So yes, they can be reporting this number and then paying a completely different number in taxes, but it's because they know all the intricacies of the IRS, to where they're able to turn around and reduce the amount of money that they're going to be paying in taxes. Because I think we saw the same thing with like either a year or two ago with like Amazon, where Amazon, I think, paid virtually nothing in taxes. And you got to think, like, if you have $1 billion corporation and you turn around and you reinvest that billion back into your $1 billion corporation, there's not going to be much money left for Uncle Sam to take. So you have to think like the rich stay rich because not only because they know how to invest and capitalize off of their gains, but they also understand the one thing that kills, not just black male men, but the ignorant society in a whole is taxes. A lot of people stay rich because they know the loopholes within taxes, and that's all a part of your capitalist gains, knowing the system in and out, and then exploiting the system in and out.
Yeah, but if the society was built on socialism, those gains wouldn't be there though. That's what I feel.
I get that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I get that. But a lot of the thing though, like I think a lot of like the arguments as far as socialism comes from the concept of big businesses not paying their due diligence to society. To whereas like if these businesses weren't getting those write-offs and that money was actually going to government, and government was turning around and reinvesting that money into communities, then we would see a change. I mean, we're talking about probably reinvestments of billions and billions of dollars into communities, whereas these corporations are getting billions and billions of dollars in tax write-offs.
Gotcha.
So that's why I say we can never get to a socialist society based off, you know, inside out. Like we would have to have another world war, and a socialist society would have to come and whoop our ass and take over. Like we're never going to get a socialist society from the inside and out unless Karl Marx's vision of socialism comes to justice, where capitalism implodes from the inside, and then, you know, the workers revolt, and then now we have a capitalist society. I don't ever see it really happen in that way, because for, you know, centuries now, capitalism has wounded itself and then it's patched itself back up.
You said wounded itself and patched it back up. Okay.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you think about it, like think about your global recessions. Like typically, your global recessions come as a result of a capitalist society doing something that they had no business doing.
But it has the
Exactly, like
ability to rebound.
Exactly.
Whereas something like a socialist movement, where we've seen examples around the world, they don't have that flexibility. Like once they're on a downward spiral, they can't recover. So I think capitalism, as what we have, is the most stable thing. And the idea is, to be successful, we want to make sure to reward and merit those people who do put in hard work, and so they can accrue and gain and elevate themselves, but also not to let the people that are at the bottom fall too far behind. You still want to make sure that they're taken care of.
Exactly.
We do have some socialist I don't know, I don't want to say laws, but some
Policy.
Yeah, policies like Social Security. So yeah, there's a few socialist laws or policies.
Disability could fall into the category.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree though. It probably wouldn't be able to thrive, and like Brian said, if it's on a downward spiral, it probably wouldn't be able to cover like a capitalist society. So
And we've seen examples.
Seen numerous examples. I mean, it doesn't help. It doesn't help that we infiltrated and, you know, either back nations to fight against communism or things like that. But we've seen them struggle because we have the might, the financial might, and then we have the technological might as well to combat and destroy any socialist society before they can even get to that point. So it's not. We can never really truly say that we've seen a socialist nation flourish, because anytime one has come, you've seen the United States always back those who are at risk of falling to a communist regime, or we've seen it to where the U.S. has done what's necessary to infiltrate a communist regime and then pretty much put them in a chokehold. So we've never really been able to see one flourish. I mean, we could say Cuba, because Cuba is the longest standing one, but I mean, even that, we haven't seen Cuba, you know, grow to global dominance since, you know, the end of the Cold War. So, you know, it's hard to truly say what could happen if one of these countries, like in the Middle East or whatever, were to have a socialist or communist regime and actually come to power. Because I mean, it could happen there. If you think about, you know, your Saudi Arabia is like, yeah, they're all like constitutional monarchies and things like that, but we never really seen one flourish. I mean, you're going to see a constitutional monarchy flourish because it's the same setup that Great Britain has. So, you know, it's shown and proved. So somebody's going to take it in, and they're going to do just as good, if not better, than what another nation does. Whereas with communism, we constantly seen it fall on its face.
So do you, Brian, believe we can have balance in the two, between health and wealth?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's all rooted in competency. So being more aware and having more effective leaders, I think that's what it starts with us at the individual level. But I think if we want to go and have the discussion about policy, that's one way that we should go and proceed forward. To have people who are insightful enough to see that, sure, you need to take this in consideration and make sure that people are having a steady stream of revenue, but then also making sure that the people are able to do
So
well.
do you think we do this now, as far as we have a equal balance?
No, I'm saying ideally.
Okay.
That's what you were asking me, correct? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like what I was saying about
I was just asking if you thought it was now though.
what I was saying is, like, I think you could say that we try, but is it perfect? No, absolutely not. And what I was saying about like the least of us not being left behind, people who are unable to do for themselves, like for the most part, we are able to do for ourselves. But there are people who don't have the same capabilities as others. And just taking that, having leaders who are able to have that amount of insight to recognize that and not favor one or over the other and think about the nation as a holistic group. So I think it's the answer to that is competency. People who actually qualify for positions.
I don't know if you answered it, Des, but do you think we value both at the same equally? I mean,
You say, well, can we?
do we?
Do we? No, because I think when it all boils down to, if somebody's going to make time to put in a few extra hours at work or do what they can and get that money in comparison to like going to the gym or, you know, taking your time. And one of the things I wanted to say earlier was we kind of, when I mentioned how complex health is versus wealth, the easiest argument is the food argument when it comes to like non-GMO versus GMO. Like that's an argument in itself that not a lot of people care to learn the true, meaning and practice of each of them. So I think that's a good example because I see, just like I think it was Lamar, like how he brought up the fruit argument where seedless grapes is not a natural thing. Whereas, you go to any grocery store, Food Lion, Whole Foods or alike, you're seeing nothing but seedless fruit. And then also just with your chicken, like people see, non-GMO chicken or whatever. And like you mentioned before, Josh, as well, as like what we define as free range really isn't free range either. So there's so many intricacies into what we consider to be healthy food that it scares people from, or I'm not even gonna say scares people, but it deters them from even wanting to go down that path anyway, because just from personal experience, like been on my fitness journey since 2016. Instead of me going and trying to learn what all the superfoods were, I worked for me chicken and rice, strawberries and blackberries, and then I get my protein. And sometimes, if I feel a little conscious, I'll switch out the milk for like some almond milk or oat milk or something like that. But there's the health industry is so vast because you're not even thinking about just what you intake. You also got to think about, it's always recommended to get a massage like once every 3 months or things like that to kind of remove the tension from your body. You're not going to see a chiropractor till it's already to that point where you have, your cervical disc is already, too many degrees to the right or to the left, or it's slipped or whatever. And now you have back issues that then turn around and affect, your mental and emotional health because your body is using more energy to function throughout the day. Like the perfect example for that is, when I had a pinched nerve in my shoulder, without me even explaining what I was experiencing, my chiropractor said, you probably get tired around 7 p.m. every day, don't you? Like you probably used to stay up really late. And ever since this has happened, you kind of see yourself going to sleep earlier and earlier as the days progress. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Why is that? And he says, because your body is using more energy to keep your joints and everything in a line. Whereas instead of you seeing that kind of, straight to the right or straight to the left or whatever. So health is like this big, industry in itself that a lot of people are just deterring from. Whereas, money is all about the green and you find ways to work and manipulate the greens to make more of it.
Yeah. I think another thing that's prevalent with that is really like the NRA and the guns in society and how the wealthy backs the NRA and how the NRA is on the same side as them. And then people are dying in the street and like, so just put out more guns. I mean, more guns doesn't help peace. I mean, so yeah, just things like that, or school shootings, like, yeah, let's arm the teachers. Like, how's, yeah, that's not, you might can say, yeah, they're focusing on their health because they're getting more guns trying to protect themselves. But like I said, more guns doesn't help with peace. Like so just something like that too. But yeah, anything else you want to add, Brian?
I want to ask you why. Why do you feel that that it's easier for people, going off the premise of what you said earlier about valuing wealth more than health, why is it easier or more alluring for people to pursue the option of money as opposed to their own well-being on an individual level.
I think it gives them satisfaction, and it gives them the satisfaction from others too, like the clout. They want that. They want that notoriety. They want that. They like, they might like the money, but they like people seeing them with money too. Like you don't get the rims for yourself. You get them for other people to see them outside your car. You know what I mean? So it's really for that. I really feel it's for that satisfaction and that clout. Really, why and health. I mean, yeah, you can get muscular and everything like that, but that's hard. I mean, and they'll rather go and make money to get something for themselves rather than build muscle. And because it's not easy to build muscle and exercise every day and everything like that. That takes commitment and everything like that. So I feel people are just more focused on the notoriety that comes with the money and everything like that, and it's more important to them at that moment.
Makes sense, especially the second part. I would agree with that in the ease of accruing money as opposed to the fitness journey. So like during the first year, people like myself with slender builds, like the first year after we get into a group of things, we gain our bulk of our weight, and then after that slows down. And then so after that, you kind of have to, you almost have to work yourself out of the plateau, and then you might gain a little bit more, but you never gain as much as you did for that first initial year. But whereas money with a job or occupation, you have a consistent stream of income. You know that every first and 15th, you're gonna get X amount of money in your account. And so that's where I think the immediate allure of money comes in. But if you look at it over time, like even long-term games, so I think it all comes down to people being more seeking gratification more immediately than long-term. So like by investing in your health, like of course you might take 3 years to get the body you want, and then you still have to upkeep it.
It takes a
As
while
opposed
though.
to, yeah, it does absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think that I don't think it's impossible to either prioritize both, or like for the sake of the example that I was just going over with people expecting that steady income. One of the things about that is that it's not always going to equate to wealth either. So it's just enough to be doing well. Most people, they aren't trying to actually, if you observe the action, they aren't acting out achieving some kind of vast empire like Bill Gates or anything like that. They just want enough to be doing well, and the most people are satisfied with that. And so if they have that steady stream of revenue, they know that they're going to get paid first and 15th, and they have a steady job. That's why people stay in jobs that they don't like, because it's certain, and the fact that they know to what to expect, as opposed to not knowing how long it's going to take to achieve a desired outcome. I think that's part of what distracts people away from the fitness journey. And it's really interesting seeing how people, like, they'll wake up for jobs that they don't like, but then they won't wake up or get up and do exercise and things like that. And like just to even get away from the physical aspect, like take care of their mental health. So going to therapy and having those conversations with people, like people, they'll most people that I've observed and I've had conversations with, they can tell you what exactly plays and what exactly is wrong, but they can't tell you what they're doing to fix it.
I think the thing with exercising and fitness, it takes a lot of internal motivation, and people don't have that. It takes a lot of internal motivation, because to really help themselves, and I don't think people really try to do that. So I think that's why the fitness thing is just too hard. If they don't have that internal motivation and commitment, that to go out like, okay, I'm gonna do this for myself, I'm gonna make myself healthy, so and so, so and forth. But they just don't. They're like, I can go to the gym, but nah, forget it. Nah, I'll do it later. It's cool.
That makes me think. So another reason that could possibly explain this is the immediacy of the consequence. So if you're taking care of your body, you might not see the results until later on in life. So what it looks like for you to, if you stop going to work tomorrow just because you don't feel like it, you're going to be homeless in a few months. If you save your money up correctly. But if you take care of your body, or if you, well, let's say you don't take care of your body, the consequences, you won't see them until later on. You won't see them until 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So I think it's like it's a false sense of urgency because people don't have the ability to prioritize as the way they should. Even though I don't think people value either as much as they do. They're just, for the most part, they're just performing at a very stable or mediocre or average level.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else you want to add, Des? Good. All right. You good, Brian? You have any more questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna wrap up the discussion today. If you guys like the discussion, don't forget to leave a like, and we're gonna see you guys next week, right? Oh wait, but before we go, Desmond has an album of the week if he does have one.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that. My album of the week, I'm gonna take it back. I think around 1992, maybe 1992. It's gonna be a Tribe Called Quest, and it's gonna be Midnight Marauders. It's one of my favorite
Class.
Tribe albums. And if you don't know anything about it, Electric Relaxation was the intro to Wayne's Bros. So you know, definitely an album to check out. Get in
Yes,
touch with your
it's a classic.
history.
Yeah, but we're gonna see you guys next week. Peace.